Okay, this is going to be game 2 of the telecom wars between SKTelecom and KT. Just got finished doing game number 1, and we're going to jump into game number 2, and we're going to follow the same exact method of reviewing the VOD. And so let's get right into it. So remember, last game, well, let me pause really quick. So last game, KT picked an aggressive composition that should have actually won across 3 lanes and had an aggressive jungler to complement it that was actually advantageous in the specific matchup. And we talked about how as long as SKTelecom recognized that, and if Peanut would go into a defensive playstyle and then just constantly power farm, match, counter gank Elise early on, it would eventually reach a breaking point where KT would have been incapable of winning. Their aggressive tendencies were not quite strong enough, and Score's movements left much to be desired. And eventually it just hit a point where KT were trying to do some things and they came up with some stuff, but ultimately the team composition for SKTelecom was way too good, and SKT played it out properly from the mid to late game transition and eventually just suffocated KT, who seemed to lack the understanding or the ability on how to recover in such a scenario. And that was okay. So now, starting off the game, we have the Malzahar ban by SKTelecom. A little bit interesting. I guess that what they're trying to say is that they don't value Malz as a first pick anymore, even though Wolf is extremely potent with that. KT responds with a Camille ban. Jace now being banned away by SKT. It is definitely flexible by Pawn and Smeb. And so a lot of these bans are very targeted in a way, I think, with the exception of Malzahar. Varus now being banned. He is the best AD carry currently in the game. But Bang has already shown a willingness to play Ezreal. He's one of the few AD carries that will opt out of the standard AD carry picks. Now, SKTelecom banning away LeBlanc. Now, this is interesting because I had criticized, I believe it was Rocks Tigers, for banning away the LeBlanc on blue side. And I said that it showcased a very specific weakness with the team, right? Because LeBlanc is just that busted. When we're talking about a game, though, at this high level, we are talking about the pinnacle of 2 of the best Korean teams. They are approaching these matchups much more specific than other teams. And what I mean by that is literally game 1, game 2, and game 3 are probably mapped out a lot more than you would find in other teams. And so the LeBlanc ban is probably specific because SKTelecom is valuing getting a certain first pick off that would not be LeBlanc. And so they're prioritizing that because of how it fits into the team component. And I think at this level of play, that is a pretty fair mindset to have. But at lower levels of play, I think that LeBlanc is absolutely too broken to be considered being bannable on blue. Lee Sin getting banned away yet again. Lee Sin has one of the worst win ratios in LCK, by the way, and most of his wins actually only come from Peanut. So they're picking up the Rengar, and I feel like this is a little bit of a mistake because now KT can respond Graves X, and when I say Graves X, they can respond Graves Jhin, they can respond Graves Karma, they can respond, because the Karma would then also attack Wolf, but then if they do respond with Karma, then Wolf can respond with Nami, because then SKTelecom likely respond with AD carry support here in this draft phase, because they don't need to give up too much information about their top and mid lane. But let's see how it unfolds. This should probably be a Rengar pick. Or not Rengar, Graves. This should be a Graves pick. Now, I will say that I did watch the games, but I did not catch the draft phase of game number 2. So I'm assuming, okay, it doesn't look like it's going to be. The Prophet here is failing. So they pick up Ashe right now, and that's going to soft counter. It's going to soft counter Jhin, and it also soft counters Caitlyn. But Bang has already showcased a willingness to play that Ezreal. So I don't think that that's actually the best decision. I think that they easily could have picked up Graves, but you could have been looking at it in the same light where, you know that Graves is guaranteed to pick here as your next pick. So now SKTelecom do respond Ezreal. They could just respond Nami here. Okay. And this is pretty standard. The alternative would be Ezreal Tahm Kench. Doesn't necessarily need to be Nami. It can be Ezreal Tahm Kench. Because then it provides you with the defensive bottom lane. Because Rengar, like already we can actually talk about this. So if you're viewing the mini map, right, and how the map is laid out, right, you have red buff. Oh, shit. Yeah, we'll just say this is red buff. You have red buff, and then you have like dragon, and then you have bottom turret, and then you have bottom turret or something, right? And obviously you have tri-brush. So if your bottom lane is going to be defensive via Ezreal Tahm Kench, you can always look to lock the lane here, here, or here in one of these 3 lines, and that'll actually create synergy for your blue side Rengar. Because blue side Rengar doesn't have the most efficiency up in top lane until he has level 6, because the only things that he can really do is lane ganks, which is kind of disadvantageous to him because he actually does have a pretty good time clearing the wolves and the wraiths. But then in addition to that, you also have the luxury of having the blue side top lane be a defensive champion, in which case later on Rengar can make use of the blasting cone into ganks. But for the most part, Rengar should be looking to play mid-centric and bottom-centric. They do pick up the Graves. And now if we go into the second draft phase, yep, they ban away the Rise, and Maokai is responded to. Maokai does fit here quite well, especially because Pawn has an affinity for control champions. It wouldn't even be that surprising to see Pawn pull out like a Zir here against the Rengar or something, given that he is on the red-hand side. But then also on top of that, the Maokai would have a lot of synergy with like Orianna and other champions like that, which you know that Pawn can play. So they opt into banning the Rise and the Corki. They final ban the Talon. But if Talon would get picked, that would ultimately force... So like, let's say that they pick Talon... Right? Oh, wait, did Azir actually get picked? Did he? Wait a minute. No. No. What the fuck? Jesus, I'm like, wait a minute. No, I saw this game. Wait, did I see game 2 or did I see game 3? I don't know. Wait. I don't know, Twitch chat. Okay, so they picked the Rumble. And so that's actually something that I was saying. So this is actually what they needed to block right here, is if you don't ban the Talon, they go Rumble here, and then you respawn mid-top, and then they respawn Talon. Because you can't have Talon mid at that point, because then it's all, you're basically begging for Bang to go Ninja Tabi with Iceborne Gauntlet and then just laugh at you. Okay, so they pick the Nautilus yet again into the Rumble. Very interesting that's going to be the choice, but because Rumble is going to be in the long lane yet again in this matchup, it does create a lot of pressure at level 6. And then Faker actually elects to pick up the Orianna. So now if you're a KT, you have to decide on a mid laner, and unfortunately for KT, like, you're left with very limited options, because now you don't have the option to go for the Azir, and they actually go with a complete curveball, and they go Zed. And this is also really interesting, because what this does is, again, it gives Ezreal the option, okay, I'm going to go Ninja Tabi, Iceborne Gauntlet, play defensive, and then, you know, Rengar's just going to scale up, Ezreal's going to scale up, and eventually they're going to be this slow-moving engine that just plows into KT. So the Zed pick is it's sort of, I don't want to say it's a style pick, but it doesn't have a proper role inside of this team. In the later stages of the game, because KT is on red, you have Rumble down in bottom, which then means that it's impossible to make use of Zed up in top lane. Whereas now if KT, like, let's flip the colors, okay, for a second. Now you have Zed up in top lane, which is going to be more advantageous because you have the safety of the Baron, right? You have the Tri-Brush, then you have the wall that, you know, protects the Baron pit, and then you have the enemy red buff. Zed can safely play up to here as long as he has a ward inside of this Tri-Brush, and he can use guerrilla warfare tactics from the top half of the map. And likewise, you can then have Rumble actually matching in bottom lane against the Nautilus, because Rengar would also be hindered on the red-hand side. In this specific scenario, and then you can actually make use of a 1-3-1. However, because of the colors, they cannot actually make use of a 1-3-1 for KT, and this is actually how terrain and color plays into things. Because you can't have Zed be up in top lane, because then you're directly moving into locations where they're likely to have established vision control that would enable you to get caught out because of how long the top lane is and what that means relative to Baron's positioning on the map. My YouTube keeps pausing. I'm not dropping frames, so I don't know what is happening. Okay, so here we are. We're about to get into the game. So KT Rolster's composition is designed to get ahead and get ahead fast. They really, really, really need to get ahead quickly. And they have, again, 3 winning lanes. They have 3 winning lanes, and it's on Peanut to properly react to that. Now, again, Peanut has a lot of potential in mid lane, level 4, 5, and 6. He doesn't really need to escort Faker in mid. Orianna can do just fine against Zed up until that point. And then Peanut has a lot of incentive in bottom 4, 5, and 6, especially because we entertain the fact that they can potentially opt to play defensively, and KT wouldn't have any say in that. Up in top lane, though, SKTelecom almost has no initiative or proactivity until Rengar is 6 and Nautilus is 6, in which case it gets actually very scary for Graves, because the Graves pick, even though he's normally going to be extremely strong on the red side of the map because of the jungle, it's actually getting compromised here because of the way that Rumble is going to play out the lane. So Graves is actually forced into playing bot-centric, but if Score is going to play it correctly, it's going to be an extremely aggressive invade style that just keeps giving Pawn and Bottom and Smeb up in top lane the information that they need to just keep driving leads down SKT's throat because of the lane advantages. Okay, so let's jump into this. A little bit too far. Okay. Peanut starts Raptor Camp, and so does Score. This is not a situation where Score would be able to use that Graves route that we talked about in the previous game, though. The variables don't add up. Wolf actually making quite a big mistake right there. That's really bad. Deft a little bit too far away, otherwise they could have traded. They could have handshook on summoners, and that would have been more advantageous for KT. This is actually really good by them. Yep. And so what I was talking about right here is, let's say hypothetically, okay, you see Deft how he moves up slightly? All right, dodges the thing from Bang. Now, let's say that Deft actually moves down right here, because even if Bang were to auto-attack him, he would then generate aggro from this and this minion, and that would still be fine, because then Deft would end up being able to come out ahead on the trade, because Bang would also be susceptible to any sort of counterplay by Mata. So, like right here, if, hypothetically, Deft was standing here and was able to move down to follow this up, you can actually cast the exhaust off onto Mata, onto Wolf, move up with Deft, and then you have him fire like the volley or the auto attack, and you end up trading summoners. But in this situation where we talked about, Score is going to be playing, Score should be wanting to play a highly aggressive counter jungle style, primarily inside of this rectangle. If the enemy bot lane doesn't have summoners available to them, that is going to be more advantageous to your team. So if you can actually trade here exhaust for exhaust, or if you can trade exhaust for flash, because sometimes scenarios like that are going to occur, it's going to be really, really good for KT. But Deft a little bit too far back, can't really do that. The other problem is that SKT are they're making tons of mistakes right here. Not only are they making the trading mistake, let me show you another mistake that they're making. That auto attack mistake. That auto attack was the big mistake, okay? Because it means that KT now has more options available to them than SKTelecom do. That one auto attack, right there, giant mistake, huge blunder. Lane manipulation is so fragile in this matchup, especially because what that could potentially do is KT could acknowledge that SKTelecom just handed them the advantage, and they can lock the lane in a position that would be disadvantageous to Peanut, and then KT, knowing that Score is going to go like this, now has incentive for him to actually come down into bottom lane before making a recall up to top into golems, which would then deflect any sort of attempt up in top lane to create a gank, even though Peanut really shouldn't be looking for it too much early on. What does that say? KT Rolster equals Jace team, KT Pawn, and that says something in another language that I can't read. See Pawn actually getting bullied a little bit. Here comes Score. Interesting route also that Peanut took. Seems like, see, this is so interesting. He recognizes that bottom and mid is his primary lanes. pick up the kill onto Faker, and now immediately Score can transition into saying, okay, where's Rengar? Where is he? He needs to go into the blue side jungle, see if blue's up, hit the Scryer plant, Wolves up, or Gromp up. If he gets that information to his team, he conveys it to them and then says, hey, okay, Rengar's bottom, be careful. But now, on top of this, Score knows exactly what Peanut's route is here. And when Peanut shows up, take a look at his CS, 17. He can't change the fact that now everyone knows what he just took. Everyone knows what camps he took and when he showed up. They can even click on his red buff, and they can see the duration remaining, and then they can get a timer on red. And bottom lane's just getting absolutely gutted right now. Really, really like what Score's doing. Heavy counter jungle style. And this is correct by all measurements. Takes away the blasting plant because that's one of Rengar's routes into getting up into top lane. Now Pawn has initiative. And now Score can reset because he gave his team the necessary information that they needed in order to constantly just be like, okay, let's just keep clapping at the enemy. And there's nothing that SKT can do about it right now. They know that Peanut can't just come down to bottom without it actually being an inefficient route, assuming that KT react to it properly. But we see that Peanut is possibly going down into bottom. We see, though, that Deft still has his ward. He does even have a Hawk Shot available to him, but he's not using it yet. You can see that Score is actually continuing to farm up. Peanut might make his way down into bottom. And this is actually KT just misplaying. This is KT misplaying. Oh, this is a gigantic misplay. What are you doing? Giant misplay. Too late. Too greedy. Didn't need to do that. Your jungler handed you a free level 6 spike. Really bad by Deft, having to blow his flash there. And now it enables Peanut to go like this. He can go bing, bing, and then back up to top lane, and then that asserts pressure onto Smeb, because both top laners are going to recall. And then at that point, if Nautilus is going to be around, or he's going to be nearing his level 6 spike, right? Because we pay attention to the game timer. And what that means, as we talked about it earlier, that then creates incentive for Peanut to actually go to the top half of the map because Rumble's in the long lane. In addition to that, you know that Score came off of doing his right side jungle into the gank, into mid lane, into moving into your left side jungle, which means that he then goes up to clear his golems, and you know he doesn't have incentive to be on the left-hand side, so there would be no counter gank assistance coming to Smeb. You can just see how bad the lanes are. Or, well, you can see how bad bottom lane is actually right now for KT, and it was all off of Deft and Mata's mistake. Lots of poke damage coming down. Ashe has enough for BF Sword, and a little bit more, so I don't actually know why Deft is staying in this lane as long as he is. Doesn't really make too much sense to me. Because handshaking this at this point, yes, it delays Bang's tier, but he's going to be able to potentially farm up into that tier plus Sheen if he wants. I don't know what either of them are really doing right now. This is super high variance play by KT, and they don't need to do this. Okay, now they're bringing in Score to help shove the lane. Here's Peanut for that counter gank. Oh! And this is going to be advantageous for KT, not SKT, because now Peanut is gutted, and you can also see that Score has the level 6. Rubber banding is going to be enabled. He goes for the kill onto Bang, gets his summoner though. That's pretty big. And now he can transition to now Score knows that he can transition onto the side of the map where he knows that Peanut is likely to be. And then because of that, he's simultaneously able to protect Smeb up in top lane and apply pressure to Faker in the mid lane. See Smeb now coming down to get vision control. Spots out, I think, where Peanut was. Well, now they know. Now they know exactly where Peanut is, and this is really bad because this isn't just them knowing where Peanut is. It's where he can and can't go now. That's the real problem. Because, again, it's all about KT drafting these winning lanes and making sure that they can acquire enough of an advantage. But take a look at mid lane. Even though Pawn got that first blood, Faker still has the lane in his control. He is down in a level, but he's up in CS. First Blood's worth about 19 or 20 CS. So Pawn's not super far behind. Faker also with a very defensive build. Double door on with double cloth armor. Now if you see what's happening across the map, it's the same exact problem as game number 1, where Pawn and Deft and Mata are not securing enough of an advantage that they need to do in order to have this handoff. And yes, Pawn has an edge right now, but that's primarily just, again, because of the First Blood. So far, you know, KT were outplaying them earlier on, but now as we're beginning to move into this mid-game phase, KT are actually getting or KT are actually falling behind a little bit, but they're going to come up with a win here. Pawn's going to live. Yeah, okay. Pawn lives there. Really good calculation by Pawn, though, to know that he should have killed him. It was the Orianna shield that saved him. Was it just the Orianna shield? Wait a minute. Was it also the exhaust as the death mark popped? Oh! Oh no, it wasn't. Never mind. Sorry, never mind. It was later. Wow, that's actually a mistake then by Faker. That's a mistake then. Okay. Well, no, it's not, because the Shuriken's above the head, right? Shuriken's above the head. KT should be able to respond here, actually, with Dragon, if they want to. Because right now, mid is about to go into a reset. Ashe is content to just continuously farm out. And yeah, there's that problem where I don't know why. Why did you handshake this, Deft? Why did you do this? This is bad. You had the 1300 gold recall. You had it, right? Like the 1350. Ezreal doesn't benefit from a 1300 recall. It just doesn't make any sense. Ezreal needs like a 15, 16, 17, 1800 recall. And yet Deft voluntarily stayed in the lane as long as he did, and it was just really bad. Now, Faker, though, doesn't have any summoners. They rotate Smeb down, and this is that same exact thing that we saw in game number 1, where Smeb can, or the lane can be pushed in, and then you can rotate your top laner around the map. And there's nothing that the enemy top can do about it because of the speed at which the enemy top can actually shove the wave into your turret. You don't end up losing that much for the amount of pressure that you exert onto the map. Although I know that Reddit would like to tell me that that doesn't exist and that you need to have the top tier 1 turret down in order to do plays that Smeb is doing, but it's not actually the case. Peanut actually shoving in, or he's getting some gold in mid lane. It's not good. It's not good enough, I should say, in bottom lane. Mid lane, though, with the kill and the assist, Faker, yeah, he's up in CS, but the kill and assist is sort of negating it. And the edge that Smeb got with the kill up in top lane, plus the CS, plus the jungler assists, they got 3 advantages. They lost in one area, but they got 3. You can see that they're extremely close in gold. Despite the kill and the assist, Faker and Pawn are pretty neck and neck. Goes for Hex Drinker first. That's primarily because they have a lot of magic damage on SKTelecom's side. Don't know if Smeb needed to shove out that lane. I actually think that was a mistake. And the reason that I say that that's a mistake is because you know that Score is actually now going to move up to the top-hand side of the map, in which case you would want the lane to be locked and frozen. Huni actually flashes away. Okay. Eats the blasting plant. Score again, going in, going aggressive, getting intel. If he sees no Gromp, sees no wolves, what the pings go down in bottom lane. See this? See the pings? That's him telling his team, okay, look, Rengar is bottom. And I really like what they're doing right now. Pawn shoves in mid lane. They go for the counter jungle attempt. They find nothing. They rotate up Pawn, and now Huni's a sitting duck. And if they can get this, bottom lane now has the info to back up, sit in front of this turret, Faker can't shove mid turret down quick enough. Bottom can't get onto the turret anyway. Rengar might be able to pick up the Drake, but they're going to get first turret, and this is not an Infernal Drake. So the Dragon for the First Blood turret at this stage of the game, relative to everything that's happening, is going to be good for KT, because the Cloud Drake doesn't do anything, because we already established also that SKTelecom are a unit, and the way that they move around the map is going to be together. And one might argue, well, okay, well, KT is not a unit, and so the Cloud Drake helps run around and match their, you know, their type of rotations. That doesn't really matter if you can't get to... Oh, well, hold on, as there's about to be a fight. Faker and Pawn. Yeah, there's the First Blood turret. There's the Ash Arrow, and Faker gonna go down, possibly? No, Pawn lives. Okay. And you can see that SKTelecom, this is not the time where they need to be fighting. This is not the point in the game where they should be looking for fights. And now, because all this chaos happened, because SKT, so let's see what SKT did in response to this rotational play. Okay, you see Peanut, he's not doing anything. You see Deft and Mata, they back all the way up to the turret. They're like, okay, fuck you. You know, you're not going to do anything to us. Let's take a look at what Peanut does, right? Pawn comes back to the lane. Faker is in mid lane. Pawn wants to trade ults with Faker here, because Faker having his ultimate available for the upcoming team fight, or if there's going to be a transition that's about to occur, it's much more worthwhile for KT to trade ults here. And let's just look exactly at what Peanut's doing. What is Peanut doing? He's coin flipping. He's being baited into a fight. This is a situation where he should be able to capture Cloud Drake, even though it's not that big of a victory. He doesn't have anything else he can do, because the situations leading up to this meant that he was already fucked from the beginning. So now they bait SKTelecom into a fight, which SKT is not in a position to take. The base levels for KT are much more valuable than the base levels for SKT. Not just like the items that KT has. Now KT going to be able to chunk bottom or mid tier 1, and this is another integral part of the map for both of these team compositions. Again, the mid turrets for both of these teams is so crucial that losing it right now for SKTelecom really eliminates a lot of the mobility that Faker is going to be granted moving into the mid game, because now Faker is going to be a little bit more hard pressed to come up with proper shockwaves. You can see it's a little bit of a replay. Ash Arrow comes in, they get baited into a fight, goes down, okay. And now they put Pawn in the side lane, and they rotate Deft and Mata to mid lane, because they know that Faker is going to be a sitting duck if he's in mid by himself. Bane comes down to bottom to try to pick up the wave. But the problem with this is, even if Faker could be handed a blue buff at this point, it doesn't really matter, because KT is going to be able to constantly shove them in and force Faker to farm at this point. What that does is then concedes this entire part of the map, and now KT is able to set up proper vision control and then execute into a temporary 1-3-1. Where they can funnel gold into a champion up in top lane, they have the 3 in mid lane, and they have the Z in the bottom lane. And then eventually what they'll do is they'll phase this into either a 0-4-1 or a 4-0-1, and they can look for opportunities to capture Herald or capture Drake. Really nice clean. Oh! Ripperoni. Nami. Feels bad, man. Huni getting caught out. Oh! Wow, Bang even having to flash away. Really nice arrow by Deft. And you can see that Peanut is basically, he's being pulled everywhere. He's like a mom with 7 babies. You know, can't be everywhere at once. You see the pressure that Faker's under and where he's forced to farm from. And now because they got the kill onto Huni, it's then saying to Peanut, okay, well, fuck you. You only have half a jungle now, whereas I have 75% of a jungle. Because now Score is able to eat all of this, or his team is able to eat some of it while he eats parts of Peanut's jungle. And this also opens up potential to get Rift Herald play. Faker, too far up. Can't do this. Yeah, you have to flash away. Pawn and Deft get the turret, and you can see the defensive posture that SKTelecom is being forced to take. And if the advantage wasn't as big as it was for KT, this would sort of be a more acceptable scenario. For instance, if both top were down and bot were down, and mid tier 1 was still up, and the gold gap was only like 3k or something, still pretty good for SKTelecom given their team composition. But KT, they're doing exactly what they needed to do. They hit their timing windows at this point, like the transition from early into mid game. Smeb shoving it out because he's up against a ranged champion, and now they put Pawn into the lane where Bang is. They're keeping Deft in mid lane. They're funneling the gold into him that way. And now what they're going to be able to do is they can have Smeb go down to bottom lane and match the Nautilus. And Pawn is going to be able to constantly and permanently apply a threat to any of the side lanes. You can see Fakers here. Pawn probably going to... Oh, yeah, he went down. I don't know exactly why he flashed. And actually, while all this was going on, KT is making a pretty big mistake. You see Ashe right now, and the reason that they're making this mistake is they don't have enough intel, but I can't really see Deft and if he has any hawk shots. If he has hawk shots, then this should never really happen. And if that is happening, then what should occur is then you concede top tier 1, and then immediately you have Score and you have Mata, then go up with Deft, shove in this wave, cut them off from these angles, and then apply pressure to this turret, and then you rotate down with Smeb because Baron's not on the field, clear out vision inside of the red side jungle, and you look to make a play against this as you sacrifice your top tier 1. Once Pawn is up, he can come up, eat the top tier 1 wave, and then move down to mid lane and eat the mid tier 1 wave, because it's not like SKTelecom can recall off of this, or not recall off of this. It's not like they can transition off of this into moving down into bottom lane. Now, obviously KT are mismanaging their micro maneuvers a little bit, and so SKTelecom is getting some ground. Any sort of a trade at this point in the game, a 1-for-1, is going to be advantageous for SKTelecom. So KT always needs to trade positive. Huh? Okay. Nice, the exhaust comes out, and he's trying to hold it. He's holding the collateral damage until the exhaust faded. Really interesting. So Score intentionally, you see, he was going to CS the wave, and they're like, no, wait a minute, Ezreal, just stop pushing. We're going to let this wave come all the way up because we got a wave in front of our turret. Fuck you, SKT. It's exactly what KT is saying right now. Ultra high level lane manipulation. Ultra high level. This is something that I've very rarely seen in all of my experience in time watching League of Legends. At least in pro level play. Sometimes, you know, you occasionally see it, and sometimes it's not even because they're intentionally doing this, subconsciously doing it. Lots of pressure goes down onto mid-tier 2. They don't quite get the turret, but what this ends up doing is it forces SKTelecom to now bounce the wave back into them, and that opens up Pawn to go again into the side lane at a point where Bang does not have the luxury of being able to contest him. And if Bang actually goes Trinity Force in this game, I feel like it would be a gigantic blunder. He does have the Sheen, but we haven't seen if he has going to go Glacial Shroud or if he's going to transition into Trinity Force. They have Pawn up in top lane. They're only able to do this primarily because of the advantage that they have right now. So credit to them for recognizing that they have that advantage, and they're taking opportunity on it while Peanut being forced to flash away. And now you can see that SKTelecom are forked. They're forked between top and mid, and they're being forced to shove the lane back into KT. And KT is just getting advantage after advantage after advantage. Incorrect by Faker to hard shove the lane. Shouldn't want to shove it back in because, again, it gives over to control to KT. Gives them options that they otherwise did not have available, or options that they didn't have before. Wolf now trying to clear out vision. They need to play defensive. They need to turtle their jungles. Well, they need to turtle their blue side jungle because the Herald timing. Baron now coming up in 2 minutes. Dragon's going to be respawning soon as well. And this is what I was talking about, where this situation is a lot different than imagine if Zed was top right now and he was blue side Zed. It's a completely different game. And this is why color matters so much, and people really need to start entertaining, like, hey, what can this champion do on this color that he can't on the other one? And you'll end up realizing that sometimes champions are significantly stronger on certain colors. For instance, red side Varus, right? That's the most popular one that I can reference. And SKTelecom, they're attempting to make semi-aggressive plays. They might get Mata right here. Never mind. Turns out Karma, good champion. Smeb comes in. Equalizer. Okay, Huni goes down. Ash Arrow was held quite a long time. Wolf cast the exhaust, but they can't win team fights. Why are you looking for these plays? Turtle, turtle, defend, block, defend, block, defend, block. So all you need to do is SKT. It seems like they're panicking a little bit, and it's probably because how often are they, SKTelecom, really put into a situation like this by any team? It's not every day that they get put into such a goal deficit where they're not able to make, plays like that because they're not this far behind. Bang actually going into Trinity Force, really big mistake. Especially when you entertain his role in the team. So you can see Peanut trying to go in on Mata, and let's say hypothetically they gut Mata right there, and Huni's able to turn around a little bit sooner, right? You can see that Mata doesn't really offer too much more to the fight. Huni would still go down regardless. Ash Arrow was conserved, and Pawn still had yet to enter the fray. The same end result would end up occurring even if they get Mata, in which point we're talking about how SKT, they need to trade evenly, whereas KT needs to trade advantageously. And so that would always end up creating a scenario where KT would always trade advantageously. So now they're setting up some Baron control. And this is also really interesting because it's not necessarily like KT wants to go for the Baron right now. I mean, they might if they can manage to get a pick. But the real thing that this is going to do is it's going to force Wolf into using his sweeping lens and all of his Sightstone wards on this side of the map. And then because the game timer is so early and KT knows that SKTelecom can't go for the Baron, they can then just be like, LOL, shove in mid lane, move over to Dragon. Okay, you have no wards. Even more incentive for KT to do this because they have control wards on SKTelecom's blue side, or red side jungle. Looked like Faker and Bang making a desperation play. They are going for the Baron, and this is primarily because they gutted Peanut, and now they turn off it because they did get spotted out. Now, I don't like what KT are doing. Mountain Drake is on the field, and they're coin flipping a fight. These are things that they don't need to do, especially when you're moving into darkness. KT trying to be a little bit too aggressive. Trying to be too aggressive. The other thing about the Iceborne Gauntlet versus the Trinity Force is not only is the Iceborne Gauntlet going to be more efficient against KT's team composition, it would also have an earlier spike, which would help in alleviating the pressure that they're under right now. So now SKTelecom, they actually have an interesting situation where they can do to KT what KT did to them last game, and they're not taking advantage of it. Even more so because Smeb doesn't. Smeb he's with his team, right? But he doesn't have a teleport available, whereas Huni does have teleport. And so what they can do right now is, rather than contest this, let KT funnel into River. They didn't need to have all 4 members of KT doing this dragon. They can say, screw you, you keep banging around here, shooting bullets at them, and then you have Faker and Peanut and Wolf shove in mid lane, raise mid tier 1 turret, cut them off right here, and then move through the red side jungle, secure vision control around the exact area that KT doesn't want you to have vision control around, primarily because their next major objective is going to be the Baron because of how busted open the map is. What this also then does is inadvertently applies pressure up to Pawn, who's up in the top lane and can't really do anything against Huni. So then you could end up having a roundabout rotation where you go boom, boom. You don't necessarily need to get this turret, but boom, boom, counter jungle up to top lane, capture. Because KT is not in a position to do anything with bot lane, not in a position to do anything with mid lane, and it's not going to open up their ability to actually capitalize on a Baron because the teleport is available on Huni, and then one of the members from SKTelecom can still hover around. So a little bit of a dropped opportunity by SKT. We'll see if they actually transition into it. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember this part of the game, but it's really sad to see them making this kind of a mistake because this, if I had to bet money, this is the most common fork that pro teams botch 100% of the time. It is this exact rotation has been around for years. I remember in SHC and stuff, we would talk about this rotation. And here we are today, almost 3 years later, and pro teams still don't make use of it. 1 to 11, things are looking extremely hopeless. Death cap on Smeb. Yes and no. Okay. I think with Ezreal having gone Trinity Force, there was even more incentive, actually, for Score to go Sterax. You can hold Serrated Dirk and then go Sterax. Because of how combo reliant SKTelecom is, and because the Iceborne Gauntlet's not going to enable Bang the same luxury. Or, I mean, the Trinity Force isn't going to enable Bang the same luxury. Now you can see that KT is actually botching things a little bit. Okay, the Equalizer comes down. Peanut taking a pretty good chunk of damage first spell. All right, I like. Yeah, okay, that's cool. That's pretty cool, even through the heal. All right, Bang. All right, good. Yeah, okay. Well, SKTelecom rebotch. So let's go back. See the Karma engage? And you can see what they're doing, right? Why did Huni walk up this far? You don't need to. You don't need to do it. Why is Peanut right here? Why did Bang come this far up? Why? Just why? What's the answer? You already have the info that you need. And now because of that, Huni actually gets caught out. And then because of that, gives Pawn the opening to go on to Bang. Huni doesn't go down, but losing Bang is really, really bad, especially because they know that Peanut has to recall. You look at bottom lane, right? Bottom lane is going to go into the turret. So now, hypothetically, let's say that KT don't go for the Baron and they just dance this. With the death timer on Bang, that minion wave will crash into that turret and all of that gold is dead. So there's a few dances that KT have available to them, in addition to the fact that they have 3 lanes pulsating in their favor. Whoa! Oh, I saw the... Even seeing it again is like, wow. They get the Baron. They get the Baron. Look at this. Look at this wave, right? Look at the fact that you have teleport. Right? You get the Baron. You've been on the map so long. What is this? What is this, KT? No, stop coin flipping. Don't do it, KT. Oh, KT. Didn't even have Equalizer. They couldn't do anything mid lane. There's no dragon. Bottom lane is absolutely horrific. Top lane had a pretty good wave. They've been on the field for so long. So let me explain something right now. Let's say that, all right, so we see the gold gap is about, well, that's after the kills. Let's take a look at something. Okay. When is the last time anyone on KT recalled? Let's take a quick peek. All right, looks like they recalled it around 22:30. So 22:30 was their last recall. All right, they get these kills. So they've been on the map for 2 minutes after having gotten kills, gotten CS, and gotten the Baron. So let's say that as they get the Baron, right? Let's do this, okay? The gold deficit is about 12,000 gold, right? Let's say that, I don't know, let's say that Pawn is holding 1,500, right? Let's say that Score is holding 1,200, right? Let's say that Smeb is also holding like 1,200. Let's say Deft is holding, I don't know, 1,300 or something, right? And then let's say that Mod is holding, 900 or 800 or something, right? Add all of this up and then subtract it from this gold lead, right? Because you know that SKTelecom, right, if we go back as well, obviously you're going to have to keep subtracting random things. Now the gold gap also on other champions is going to be even more. SKTelecom just came off a recall. Right? So they're like, the number isn't going to be as gross as I'm implying, but it's still something to factor in. And I think that it's something that's not really talked about enough. So okay, they kill Pawn, and then let's talk about the immediate rotation after they kill Pawn. So they kill Pawn. You know that Smeb has teleport. Get red. Faker get blue. Bang shove out. Huni go top. Eat wave, shove wave up. Huni come down, eat left side jungle. Escort wave to right here, have bang recall right here. After Faker eats this, eat Gromp, have Faker back up, maybe eat the plant, blasting plant, etc. Faker recall here. SKTelecom move out, eat the wave that's going to be right here. Eat your Wraiths, eat your Golems, eat your red, and then reset. Alright, we don't need to watch the replay again. Oh, another fight. What the hell's going on? Sorry, went too far ahead. Okay, so immediately after everything, pawn goes up to top lane. Okay, and now they're going to go into a 1-0-4. And the other thing that's good about the 1-0-4 is it'll deny vision inside of SKTelecom's red side jungle and open up for them to get the dragon. KT to get the dragon. Looks like Peanut's just using his ultimate for vision. But they don't have a response to Pawn because you can't send Huni up there at this point. What are they doing? Okay, disengage, disengage, disengage. This is a mistake. This doesn't need to happen. Disengage, Pawn, get. See what happens. Huh? Pawn, or score. You coulda eat over this and gotten out. Deft, use your flash. Mata. You don't need to be here right now. Smeb, use your ultimate, and then laugh. Then type LOL. Literally just shift, enter, LOL. Okay? Because then what ends up happening is dead. All right? So you get a tower, you get this minion wave, that's a kill. Okay? What does SKT do if you guys just entirely disengage this? Well, they can't go bottom. Dragon's not on the map. They can't get this turret. There's no minion wave mid. They just, I think that they just bend over. I think they just bend over. But instead, they get summoner spells out of it. They get summoner spells, but then Huni goes too ham. And he ends up dying. Now, if the thought process is that you want to bait them into a fight and do that, then whatever. But I don't think that you really need to be blowing summoners when you're in such an advantageous position, especially if you can then stall the fight and intentionally just chase them back to their base and enable Pawn to get top inhibitor turret. Looks like Pawn's getting it. Now they escort in mid because enemy team doesn't have Huni. Okay. I don't know what the dragon is, so I can't make too much of a comment on certain things. Oh, okay, Score's gonna die, yep. No, why? Didn't need to do this. Did not, KT is just being too aggressive with their lead. Like, if we're talking about the absolute highest level of play, your lives are decided by your ability to win. Keep increasing the percentage threshold. Oh, mother of heaven. Something else I actually didn't get to talk about in the debate earlier is shutdown gold. I didn't actually bring up that point either. Is that with all the leads that KT is getting early on, there are mechanics set in place to dissuade you. Or not to dissuade, but to punish you if you then make a mistake in the mid and late game. And now SKTelecom actually pick up an Infernal Drake, which is the best one at this point in the game. And they also pick it up at a point where Elder Drake is not going to be on the map, which KT would have been in a much better position to actually take because of that Mountain Drake. And because they have the 1-3-1 option available to them on red side if Elder comes up. If Elder doesn't come up, then they don't have it available. Okay, so Pawn's up in top lane now. You have Smeb down in bottom. And it looks like they're just trying to thread the needle. This is actually a situation where you can have the 1-3-1, again, in a unique scenario because top tier 2 is down, but also because of the gold lead that KT has, where you can have him escort up, and then you have him walk down, unite with the 3 in mid, come up to the inhibitor, and then you have Smeb shove in the wave. You dance at the inhibitor, and then you rotate down even inside of the base. Smeb casts the equalizer, get the turret, and then you back off, and you wait for Baron. You don't need to necessarily commit to the fight and get the inhibitor, because then that actually gives SKTelecom a chance to fight back and blow back at you. Really, really, really hate Bang's build. Not like super hate it, but just it should have been an Iceborne. KT being a little bit too greedy. Don't need to do it like this. Okay, here comes Pawn. Yep, Pawn unite, escort into base. Wait a minute, why did Smab leave bottom? See, look at bottom, look at bottom. KT is messing up. KT is messing up right now. KT making really, really big mistakes. Now a team fight might break out. Why? This is the best. So, okay, look. If you do the thing that I just mentioned, right? Oh, fuck me, man. 1-3-1 into the 0-4-1 into the 0-0-5, but I'm gonna put like a breaker in between, right? Because the 4 escort inside of the base, equalizer comes down, much like a Talia wall or Talia, whatever, and then you take the turret, right? So in that scenario, SKTelecom's chances, I'm just gonna throw out random numbers, is let's say 10% to win a team fight. Okay? In this scenario, SKTelecom have like a 25% to win a team fight. Why? Why do it? This doesn't make any sense. Maybe there's an even deeper play that can actually be done, and I'm just not really seeing it. Maybe there's an even deeper play that would then make that one suboptimal. But the point remains is that I'm watching this, I can clearly see and pinpoint that there is a mistake being done on a macro level that isn't outside of the realm of possibility for these teams to do. But it just seems like KT is getting a little trigger happy in a way. And look at the gold score. Think about how much KT's been on the map again, and the proximity to SKTelecom's fountain. Think about what the Infernal Drake's doing right now in terms of gold. KT is almost behind. They're almost behind. So it may seem weird that I said 10% when I say that KT's almost behind, right? That what's giving them the edge does make it really difficult for them to lose the team fight. But they're on a little bit of a clock right now, where it's starting to get to a point that was very similar in game number 1, and SKT will actually overthrow them. Or they could. They could. I can't even imagine how valuable that Infernal Drake is right now across all the champions. Rengar has 205 AD. Wow. I'm just trying to think about it in a gold scenario. Ezreal, 280. You know, so what did he have before the Infernal Drake? Think about what it's giving him. Is it giving him, 2 longswords, 2.5 longswords? It's extremely valuable. What about Faker? It's giving him something, right? It might be giving him a longsword exactly, right? It might be giving him exactly a longsword on his auto attacks, and then his AP, right? His spells are getting enhanced. How much AP is he getting? Is he getting a blasting wand yet? No, I guess he wouldn't be getting a blasting wand yet, but... Oh, actually, yeah, he would be pretty close to getting a blasting wand. So the gold for SKTelecom is a little bit misleading right now. Okay, and so now SKT actually moving into the river after making sure that bottom lane was shoved out, mid was escorted. Really bad spot by KT. They're getting out macroed right now. And this is an insurance policy. SKTelecom seem much more adept at the late game, or the mid to late transition. We're still in the mid game, but this is the mid to late transition, and SKTelecom seem a lot better here if we're just also going off of the previous game. Okay. So summoners actually get blown And SKT not in the worst of positions right here. Dragon's coming up yet again. It's another Drake. I don't know which one it is off the top. I didn't get to take... Mountain. Okay, so that's actually really big for both teams. Obviously, KT would want it a little bit more so that it helps with the Mountain Drake that they already have. Ooh, that's a really, really big chunk, and that's going to force them off the turret. So they're being a little bit too aggressive. Oh, couldn't quite get the fight, but oh my god, that equalizer from Smeb. Oh. And they're winning the fight just barely. They're barely winning this fight. Well, I don't even actually know if that's a win. I don't know if that's... No, I think that's a loss, actually. All things considered, I'm pretty sure that's a loss. Yeah, that's a loss. All things considered, that is 100% a loss, actually. We can take another look at this fight. So you see Peanut didn't quite go in. I think maybe Faker wanted him to flash, and then Faker gets another beautiful shockwave. But they didn't quite kill Faker as fast as they had wanted to. Bang even was able to get the heal off. But then he goes down, and then they struggled to kill Pawn. But the real problem is it lets SKTelecom fix the lanes yet again. And then again, it draws the game out, where their team composition scales with that. Okay, Score got the Baron. What is going on here? No, just back up, 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 back up. Peanut made a mistake. Peanut made a huge fucking blunder. Okay. Pawn go top, 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 pawn. What are you doing? Pawn, pawn. We talked about this. Pawn, pawn. Maybe he has GA. Hold on, let's see. Let's see. He's recalling right now. What is he getting? Okay, he got GA. Never mind. Okay, okay. That's acceptable. That's acceptable. Okay. That's the only variable that would change that. Okay, they're going to rotate down now, and they're going to pick up the Mountain Drake. No reason not to. Makes things that much safer. Pawn's going to get the blue. Faker going to come in here and get a ton of gold. Gold lead again is quite big. But that Infernal Drake, again, it's still doing stuff for SKTelecom. Pawn now actually looking for an assassination. Pretty interesting. Intentionally staying away, far enough away from the minions so that the Baron minions don't buff it. And so this is interesting because we're still seeing them make a pretty bad mistake, right? I feel like this is a pretty simple situation where you could actually have Smeb in mid lane. Because no one's actually going to contest him, not with the equalizer, right? And then you have three people up in top push in this wave, and then you have Smeb rotate up, and then you have Pawn shove in this wave, move here, you get the turret with the Baron buff, or the other four and Pawn unite in mid, and this is a situation that because of the Baron minions, they have a clear shot escort into the base, and because you pulled at them on their sides, they're not in formation. They don't have the concave that would be necessary to produce an advantageous position for SKT. And then off of that, you can then even swap. Because you have all five of them here. Now you have Pawn go up to top, and then you have, I don't know, you have Smeb stay in mid lane, and then you have three of them go bottom. And then you go into a 1-1-3 scenario. And then because of the equalizer, technically Smeb is both with Pawn and with bottom lane. See, the SKT is waiting for it. And, I mean, KT might even handshake it. Oh, man. Nice spell. Nice spell. Equalizer. Yep, and here's that 5-man, actually, that I was talking about. And now they can break. They don't need to stay. Now you can have Pawn go top. No. No. Okay, well, Pawn is going top, but what the fuck are they doing? No. I guess they're going to get the red for deft. They should have had Smeb stay mid. Even without the equalizer at this point. With the Baron buff and the movement speed that he has, like, he's completely safe, especially when you consider flash. The resources needed to commit and kill Smeb would end up costing them either top inhibitor or bottom inhibitor, in which case it's a very good trade for KT. Okay, so here's that. Okay, here's that 1-0-4. And now, yeah. Pawn just able to ignore Huni. You don't have to fight. Don't need to fight. Don't need to fight. Deft, back off the turret. Don't need to fight. Don't need to fight. Don't need to fight. Yeah, you got a clock up in top lane. Don't need to fight. Okay, yeah. You got the turret. Don't need to fight. Don't need to fight. Don't need to fight. Okay, zone them off. Yeah. No, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Okay. And then pawn still didn't secure the top thing, and now they're going to back off. Okay, so this is good. Everything that they're doing right here, this is good. They did manage to get the inhibitor. Okay, well, they might actually just... Okay, Bang ends up healing. Grievous Wound's not quite enough. And now looks like they're going to get top inhibitor right before they push on to the turrets. Smeb actually not locking them up. Doesn't really matter. Even if SKTelecom were to win this, I'm pretty sure that their turret would go down as well, and then it's 3 inhibitors down plus open nexus. Even if Baron or Elder were coming up, it would not be enough to let SKTelecom get back in this. So anyways, the whole thing about the coin flippy team fights as well is we also need to talk about how KT have all of their turrets up. And this is also getting to a stage in the game where once the base levels even out and the minions are even in terms of power, so that it's not like pushing into one specific team because another team's base levels are higher. What it ends up happening is, let's say that team fight in middle that they could have taken a few moments ago and they could have botched, etc. What that does is suddenly a turret goes down, another turret goes down, and maybe they even get another turret. And that gold lead that the deficit they were at before, what was it, like about 6k? Doesn't mean anything anymore. Not when you factor in the Infernal Drake. At that point, SKTelecom would have actually been really far ahead. And so KT were able to eventually thread the needle. Some macro errors that, in a way, you could actually consider big, but for the most part, they managed to outblitz SKTelecom in the early game, almost dropped the ball, picked it up massively in the early to mid transition, stabilize it in the mid game, and then they almost dropped the ball again in the mid to late transition, but then they stabilize and they pull out with the win. So really good level gameplay. I don't think any other team right now in the world would have ever put SKTelecom into a spot like that, but it still showcases the difficulty in getting them and in closing the game when you have these comeback mechanics, rubber banding, and you have, a shutdown gold, etc. And SKTelecom has these superior scaling team compositions. It makes it really difficult. So, all right, we're going to go into game number 3 now.